Hello friends, and welcome to my today's lecture, that is the third part of the themes in Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. In my earlier lectures, I had mentioned that To the Lighthouse novel recalls the childhood emotions and highlights the adult relationships. I had also talked about the various themes that it deals with, naming a few of them like those of loss, subjectivity, the nature of art, and the problem of perception, etc. In my earlier lecture, I had also discussed in detail the time, the meaning of life, and the nature of interior life as one of the major themes in the novel. Today I'll be discussing about art and beauty and gender a little in detail. Now, as the novel To the Lighthouse examines the nature of interior life as it happens in the stream of consciousness technique, To the Lighthouse examines the nature of art and beauty, giving credence to commonly accepted understandings, even though it gives certain alternative definitions. Now, weaving in pieces of Sir Walter Scott's novel and the lines from Shakespeare's sonnet, To the Lighthouse exhibits the beauty of standard art masterpieces, and it presents a traditional ideal of human beauty in the person of Mrs. Ramsay. Mr. Banks imagines her classical beauty on the other end of the telephone. The power of such beauty in both arts and humans can work for good. The literature, the characters, read gives joy and consolation as Mrs. Ramsay delights in the loveliness of the sonnets, words, and Scott's prose frees Mrs. Ramsay from anxiety about his public image. Now further, such artworks can inspire faith in an all-encompassing human project. After reading Walter Scott, Mr. Ramsay no longer cares whether it is he or someone else who reaches the Z. Someone will, he knows, and that's enough. Likewise, Mrs. Ramsay's human beauty consoles and inspires. Those around her admire her and they feel strengthened by her spirit. Mrs. Tansley feels happy just when Mrs. Ramsay is present there, and he tries to be more kinder and more generous for her sake. Paul attributes his courage in proposing to Minta to Mrs. Ramsay's effect upon him. Still, beauty can exert less positive influences. Lily, the painter, observes that beauty can reduce and obscure, concealing or hiding the complexity of life beneath it. And while admiring Ramsay's beauty, we see that Lily tries to see past it to the living thing, and that so animates her. Now, as the novel considers the nature of beauty, it also considers the makers of the beauty or the creators of the beauty. Now, Mr. Carmichael and Lily's characters, they afford a view of art while still being in the process of unestablished artists. In every case, beauty springs from unlovely circumstances and unexpected ones. Though Lily's meager existence in the novel, self-doubts and despair comes the painting which he completes in the last section. Even then, the novel does not limit the making of beauty to the production of fine art projects. It understands the human conduct and daily life as a form of art also. Thus, Mrs. Ramsay's orchestration of herself, her family, and her guests is described in terms which are applied to artistic composition, and Lily is the one who recognizes Mrs. Ramsay's personality as an aesthetic force and a masterpiece. Now, if we broaden our understanding of art and beauty, we find that the novel shifts its emphasis from the finished product to the process, rather than limiting art to the concrete, enduring, delimiting the artifacts. The novel shows that the art can also be a spirit, a frame of the mind, or a form of vision. Thus, we see that Lily ends the novel satisfied, even though she knows that her painting itself will never be immortalized, and usually it will, like any other painting, will certainly be forgotten. She feels contented just knowing that she has participated in art and beauty just by making the painting or by having a vision of it. Now, another theme that Woolf deals with in her novel, To the Lighthouse, is gender. Now, as far as gender is concerned, we see that the novel's main technique, that is of the stream of consciousness, though it jumps from one perspective to the other, but gender remains in focus, as all the characters in the novel, they consider gender roles and relations from their own viewpoint. Now, Mrs. Ramsay, she delights in her own womanhood, and successfully she fulfills the traditional female roles of taking care as a homemaker, beauty, and comforting men, and so on. Though Lily, she resists this traditional role of a woman, and she's successful in it. But again, her anxiety and her self-doubt, it forces her to make up with Mr. Ramsay somehow, who tries to seek female sympathy from her. Now, Mr. Tansley and Mr. Ramsay, both of them who aspire to strength, chivalry and intellectualism, they do adopt this traditional role of men acting as a protector of women and evincing the prejudices against the female irrationality and simplicity. But as we see in the novel, though the women, they are not respected and they are looked upon by men, but these very men, they depend on these women for their praise and sympathy to keep their egos afloat. Though Mr. Ramsay is in the know of this need of his, which he knows acts as his weakness, but still he is unable to overcome it, and so he tries to seek Lily's sympathy. Now, the novel not only deals with the individual roles of men and women, but it also deals with the relationships between them within a marriage and presents two models of domestic union On the one place, we have Mrs. and Mr. Ramsay, whose relationship represent the conventional romantic partnership, where Mr. Ramsay is emotionally dependent on Mrs. Ramsay, and he's basically he's a rational breadwinner, we can say, Mr. Ramsay, and but Mrs. Ramsay is she's less emotional, and she's the comforting homemaker though, but they make a good team, and they're very happy. But the case of Paul and Minta is a little in contrast to Mr. and Mrs. Ramsay, and we find that Minta is not very happy about getting betrothed to Paul, and their relationship involves struggle and argument too, though later on their relations are repaired somehow and they lead a life. But indeed, so we see that the novel presents marriage and gender both as complex and continued negotiations between the sexes, each one's expectations not befitting that of the other, but they are nevertheless they are worked around, worked through, and reinvented. That's all for now. I'll be coming up with more lectures of mine. Till then, goodbye and thank you.